Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from the Frontier. I trust you all had a great weekend. Yesterday in the morning, the bedroom was bathed in sunlight, and we haven't had sun like that for an eternity, so it was rather lovely. These are photographs I took on Saturday afternoon when I had an interview with Al Jazeera. They're on the 10th floor in Upper Hill. And the first photograph is of Upper Hill, as is the second and the third. You can see the 5 knuckles of the Gong Hills, which is where, of course, Karen Blixen lived and wrote so beautifully and lyrically. The subject of discussion with Sami Zeidan of Al Jazeera was a decade after Lehman. And with that inspiration, I wrote a piece about a decade after Lehman this weekend. My career in the financial markets was in what is called the repo market, which was described thus in a Bloomberg article. Over here are investors with cash that's not doing anything profitable at the moment. Over there are banks with tons of bonds and a need for ready money. The so-called repo market is where the two sides meet. Repurchase agreements make up an essential, if esoteric, piece of financial plumbing. By providing a place where assets can be pawned for short-term loans, a healthy repo market helps a wide range of other transactions go more smoothly. But a repo meltdown was a crucial part of the financial panic in September 2008. I started my career financing Credit Suisse First Boston's balance sheet, and basically in those more swashbuckling days you could pirouette leverage of $200 to $1 of equity. I then ran a customer financing desk where we would finance hedge funds and all sorts. We expanded the business to include all the G7 markets and even emerging markets. All through the second half of the 1990s and onwards, one of the most profitable trades was at quarter end with Lehman Brothers. Lehman were renowned for playing the leverage game at 300 and 400 to 1, but at quarter end would need to show a much reduced leverage ratio, and we would enter into repo transactions with them, which were characterized as index-linked swaps. Subsequently, and much later, these were called Repo 105s. Repo 105 is Lehman Brothers' name for an accounting maneuver that it used where a short-term repurchase agreement is classified as a sale. The cash obtained through this sale is then used to pay down debt, allowing the company to appear to reduce its leverage by temporarily paying down liabilities just long enough to reflect on the company's published balance sheet. After the company's financial reports are published, the company borrows cash and repurchases its original assets. I also recall a time when I was asked to interview with Lehman in New York, and after a full day of interviews, I finally got to Dick Fult's office. And he turned to me and he asked, "Ali Khan, how much do you earn and how much are you worth?" I said a number, and he turned and said to me, "This room right here is where we print money." He then asked 2 other colleagues, "Tell Ali Khan how much you are worth." And they both said about $50 million, which was a lot of money then and is still now. And all their money was in Lehman's stock, which is why I always say making money in the market has 3 components: spotting the anomaly or opportunity, capturing it, and then making away with your profits. I have digressed. The point is we all live in the real time, our faces pressed against a high-frequency screen. But a 10-year sweep in perspective is not something we afford ourselves in this seriously fluid and real-time world. As we look back, we can appreciate that G7 central banks basically flooded the world with free liquidity. This liquidity wave suppressed bond yields, and markets worldwide surfed higher, from emerging to frontier markets to cryptocurrency markets. African Eurobonds over the past 6 years, sub-Saharan African governments have issued $81 billion in dollar bonds. The markets have been like a patient etherized upon a table for a whole decade. It's as if the world became a Lehman to rescue itself from Lehman. It's been a decade-long Riviera. Since the beginning of 2018, the US has been reducing its balance sheet, reducing the amount of dollars, and also increasing the interest rate on those dollars. The dollar, which had appeared like a toy gun, has suddenly metasized into an AK-47. The worry is what happens if it metasizes further. The dollar is seriously weaponized, the US economy is blowing hot, the risk is that US interest rates will go higher than the market is currently predicting. Punch-drunk markets need to sober up fast. Hyperbolic and populist responses are inversely correlated to the state of the real economy, notes Nicolas Maduro's Venezuela and President Erdogan. Now let me turn to the Eurobond markets, where Africa issued $81 billion worth of bonds over the last 6 years. These markets trade continuously. Essentially, these markets are a continuous scorecard on the credit worthiness of the issuer. It's a relatively recent phenomenon in the case of Africa, and something many policymakers will not have considered adequately, given that balance sheets are also maxed out. There are no more quaaludes, and policymakers will no longer be able to pop them. In prescribed doses, quaaludes promotes relaxation, sleepiness, and sometimes a feeling of euphoria. It causes a drop in blood pressure and slows the pulse rate. These properties are the reason why it was initially thought to be a useful sedative and anxiolytic. It became a recreational drug due to its euphoric effect. I concluded by saying bubbles are bursting just about everywhere. To wit that we became a Lehman in order to save ourselves from Lehman, this is the world's post-Lehman legacy, is a debt burden of almost $250 trillion. Further, you think the Fed or the ECB are the biggest money printers since the financial crisis. Think again. This trophy is held by the SNB. And then Tracy Alloway very kindly produced us a scorecard. Congrats to the investors who, in the midst of a global financial crisis and seize up of interbank markets, correctly predicted that palladium would be the big winner. Trump is likely to announce new China tariffs as early as today. This is Reuters, on about $200 billion of Chinese imports as early as Monday. The tariff level will be probably about 10%, says the Wall Street Journal. This year, imports from China through July were up nearly 9% from the same period of 2017, according to the US Census Bureau. 9th of July, I wrote a piece, Tariff Wars, Who Blinks First? I was talking about James Dean, an iconic American actor who tapped into the universal yearning and angst of nearly every adolescent human being, with a raw connection that has surely not been surpassed since. In one of his most consequential films, Rebel Without a Cause, 2 players, read teenage boys, decided to settle a dispute, read teenage girl, by way of near-death experiences. Each speeds an automobile towards a cliff. A simple rule governs the challenge. The first to jump out of his automobile is the chicken, and by universally accepted social convention concedes the object in dispute. The second to jump is victorious, and depending on context, becomes gang leader, prom king, etc. And this is why Trump thinks he's winning the global trade wars, S&P 500 versus the rest of the world. This Chinese stock slipped below key level before going into lunch break, poised for the lowest close in 4 years. And that's why I said to Sputnik, Trump's aggressive foreign economic policy is the signature success of this administration. It's highly effective. He can keep it up. It's working a treat. And then on a tweet from somewhere else, I said, what's changed is China's getting walloped. And it's a signature success. Home thoughts, Kenya's Eliud Kipchoge, 33, set a new marathon world record at 2 hours, 1 minute and 39 seconds, taking 1 minute and 18 seconds off the previous best, which is the largest single improvement in the marathon world record since 1967. He was, of course, a spectacular guest at Mindspeak, where he said many things. And what really struck me, he says, personally, I believe in what I'm doing. To run a big marathon and win it takes 5 months. When I'm on the starting line, my mind starts to think of what I've been doing for the last 5 months. I believe in my training. I treat myself as the best one on that line because my mind is telling me that I am the best. And I believe in what I'm doing in the last 5 months. I can run free, and that's what actually has helped me to be successful. Essentially, he seems to be saying that he's already won the race before he starts it because of what he knows he's done in the last 5 months. Yesterday, 2 hours and 1 minute and 39 seconds seemed crazy. Today is the marathon world record. Just do it. That's Nike, whose share price, of course, has confounded Donald Trump. This is an incredible image of the Twin Towers during construction. This is a gorgeous sunset in Ukunda. Those simple moments that make life beautiful. Photo by Jason Jamhuri. What does it look like Ryan Fitzpatrick does for a living? I was equally intrigued early this morning as I scrolled through the Twitter feed. Political reflections, an Oromo horseman today at the rally in Addis Ababa, Mescal Square, Ethiopia. That's via AP. And you know, that is an incredible situation, isn't it? In a few short months, these were considered an insurgent group, and suddenly they've been brought back into the political process. It's an extraordinary development, and that's why I'm so flattering of Abiy. His Royal Highness King Salman awarded the highest medal in the kingdom to His Excellency Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and His Excellency President Isaiah Afwerki. A lot of comment as to why this should happen in Saudi Arabia, but essentially the Saudi Arabians consider this Horn of Africa their backyard. They are positioning with the UAE for optimal geo-economic positioning. They've come through the ports in many respects. They're trying to block Qatar and Turkey. And this is why I wrote a piece a while back called A Port Race about this area. Corruption is wasting Chinese money in Africa at Foreign Affairs Salman. This is the point I was also making in that interview I did on Al Jazeera Inside Story. Djibouti, where China owns about 80% of its public debt. Zambia, where people are worried about a takeover of Zesco. And then a lot of interesting data. What I didn't know was this is just 5 recipients: Sudan, the DR Congo, Kenya, Ethiopia, and Angola accounted for more than half of all the loans from China, which is an interesting point. Angola and South Africa accounted for more than half the continent's trade exports to China in 2016. Not every pledge from China gets dispersed, we know that. Talking about a water and sewer project in Harare, they got a $144 million loan from China. But then local media reported China declined to disperse half the loan after an independent audit revealed budget inconsistencies. The issue here is the ratio of inflation. Make no mistake, it's been a phenomenal ratio. And this is what is actually an Achilles heel for China as well. And that's why the Chinese, if you noticed, made a very subtle linguistic twist, FOCAC, where they said it's not about, it's saying that you voted these governments in with whom we're dealing, which was an interesting point. Talking about the SGR, saying China's laissez-faire approach is the assumption that African nations will determine what's in their best interests. That assumption is erroneous. And this is one of the points I was making in that Inside Story. The link is up there as well. Debt stalks Africa again. Over the past 6 years, sub-Saharan African governments have issued $81 billion in dollar bonds. We've come to render homage to the great helmsman Mao Zedong I feel very moved remembering one of the great founders of our multipolar 21st century without hegemonic empires that blackmail and dominate, Nicolas Maduro. This was my other point, that hyperbole is an inverse correlation to the state of the economy. Welcome to the Syria Deception is a video worth watching. China will operate Haifa port near Israel's alleged nuclear-armed submarines, and it seems no one in Israel thought about the strategic ramifications. I tweeted plot twist, because the US's gendarme in the Middle East is Bibi Netanyahu in Israel. The assault on the Uighurs serves Beijing's imperial ambitions, which require stable land borders. Robert D. Kaplan. Euro dollar 116.28, dollar index 94.91, Japanese yen 111.99, Swiss franc 0.9669, the pound 130.79, the Australian dollar 0.7157, India rupee close to a record low again 72.555, South Korean won 1127.88, Brazilian real 417.41, Egyptian pound 17.9035, and the rand at 14.9398. Dollar index, my stop is still at 94. We did see a bit of softening in the dollar, but it's strengthening again. My target remains 100 on this index. Euro dollar 116.28. It never really could get going to the upside, and I think we're going to 115.05 and then below. Gold back below 1200, 1195.75. We've been trending around here for quite a while now. Oil $68.85, near 69, and this continues to be underpinned by the squeeze on Iran, I think. Emerging markets investors count on central bank decisions in some hard-hit emerging markets this week for a reprieve from rout. After Turkey and Russia surprised traders last week with more hawkish than anticipated policy moves, there's an outside chance the South African Reserve Bank may follow in their footsteps by raising interest rates on Thursday after the rand slumped to a 2-year low. India rupee, sovereign bonds and stocks slid as traders deemed the latest measures by the Modi government to rein in the currency's decline as inadequate. 72.55, just off a record low. Goldman says India's world-beating stock market run is over, and indeed it was an extraordinary world-beating run. Market has nearly doubled since March 2014, returning more than twice that of global equities. Sub-Saharan Africa, as we said, President Isaiah Afwerki is seen in this photograph departing to Saudi Arabia, and he was there with Abiy for an official ceremony in Jeddah. And this is what I was saying, when you overlay the geopolitics, and it's worth noting that geopolitics has become much more fluid. Fluidity has been engendered by the spectacular arrival of Prime Minister Abiy. These 90 or so days represent the most consequential arrival of an African politician on the African stage since Mandela walked out of prison, blinking in the sunlight. Here you see a crowd waiting for the arrival of the once banned Oromo Liberation Front in Mescal Square, Addis Ababa. The photograph was arresting. This woman was quite extraordinary, I thought. Fish shortage sparks conflict in Africa's Great Lakes. Stop the boat, hands up, surrender any weapons, yelled Lieutenant Deogracious Cato as the soldiers surrounded a motorized canoe after a 20-minute chase, pointing guns at two terrified fishermen. This is on border between DR Congo and Uganda, and saying that the Congolese have completely fished out their side. Economist, Zambia slumps towards another debt crisis. Concerns on the street is mirrored in markets of the 75 countries whose bonds make up the Bloomberg Barclays Emerging Market Index, a basket of sovereign debt. None has performed as badly in 2018 as Zambia. Given crises in Argentina and Turkey, this is some achievement. The market is pricing in a default, notes Gregory Smith of Renaissance Capital. Extra spending has been funded by borrowing. Public debt increased from 21% of GDP to 59% at the end of 2017. Paying back these debts is putting huge pressure on Zambia's finances. The biggest item in the budget used to be education. Today it's debt service, with nearly a quarter of government spending going to pay back loans. It's talking about, a study by the World Bank in 2017 found that Zambia paid $360,000 per kilometre, which is more than twice the African average. I've been here for 21 years and never seen so many people afraid to speak out, says an academic in Lusaka. Zambia has become an authoritarian state. It's in big trouble. And they're in denial, popping those quaaludes. South African oil share down 4.91% this year. Dollar versus rand. I think you resell the rand for a violent move through 15. Egypt's main stocks index dropped the most since January 2017, with sell-off following detention of ex-President Hosni Mubarak's two sons. Egyptian pound 17.9188. Nigerian oil share down 15.47% year-to-date. Ghana Stock Exchange in Ghana was upgraded over the weekend, up 6.88% year-to-date. Rana Gopaldas called Kenya's recent responses as kamikaze-nomics. Excellent article in the East African Review by David D. Between the hammer of the markets and the anvil of politics. And he's given a lot of analysis. The government opened the year with 102.8 billion in the bank. It raised 99 billion from taxes, borrowed 30 billion locally. Total inflows of 129 billion during the month. How was the money spent? Debt took 68 billion, just under 70% of the tax raised. Counties' budget got no money at all. Treasury closed the month with 110.7 billion shillings, 8 billion more than the opening balance. Why did the Treasury hoard money when the counties and development projects were starved of cash? I will come back to that question shortly. Stock of debt has increased 187%, but debt service outlays are up 230%. Debt to China is now 550 billion shillings, accounting for close to 30%. Commercial debt in China combined account for 80% of the increase in foreign debt. This is an important point he's making. It's well worth reading it in full. The markets do not send emissions, they dump your bonds. The low-down mega projects are off the table, as is the Big Four. It is fair to say that Mr. Kenyatta is now caught between the hammer of the markets and the anvil of politics. IMF said Kenya authorities have requested more time before its findings for the latest Article 4 review are released. This is just peculiar and rather alarming, actually, because it shows you they're just not on top of the situation. It's now been 2 months, and this is not normal. The Article 4 IMF reports and the benchmark overview of the economy that usually occur every 2 years. Yields on both the 10 and 30-year Euro bonds increased by 0.1% to 8.2% and 9.1%. This is the 30-year 9.1%. Looks interesting in double digits, I think. Kenyan shilling is appreciated by 1.9% year to date, but it's going to lose a lot of ground now. Nairobi oil share down 7.63% year to date. Last week's performance was driven by declines in large cap stocks such as Bamburi Cement, Barclays, DTB, Safaricom declined by 9.4%, Bamburi Cement 7.7%, Barclays 3.7%, Diamond Trust 3.6%, Safaricom. Safaricom is a buy on this reverse. The NSE currently trading at a price to earnings ratio of 12.7. Dividend yield of 4.5%, that's from Saiton. In that same report, 5 banks implicated in the National Youth Service scandal, where 9 billion shillings was lost in the graft scandal that saw several companies receive payments for goods not delivered, got fined a collective 392.5 million shillings. Banks include KCB, Equity, Standard Chartered, Co-op and Diamond Trust Bank have been granted a period of 2 weeks to seal the loopholes that aided the occurrence of the fraud without notice to the relevant authorities. They've got to submit an action plan aimed at thwarting such lapses within the 2 weeks. KCB was levied with the highest penalty for allegedly channeling money stolen from the government through the NYS scam. NSE 20 down 19.36% year to date. Air pollution in Nairobi, Vaisala AQT 420 measurements. Levels of roadside sulfur dioxide, SO2, surpassed the WHO guideline 20 UG /M3 red line by a factor of 5 to 10. Oh God. Kengen rallied 5.79% on Friday to close at 640. Trades on a trailing P ratio of 4.672. It's terribly cheap, dragged down by KPLC's woes, I think. New world record. Congratulations to Eliud. 2 hours, 1 minute and 39 seconds, I think it was. And with that, I'll leave you with a photo I took this morning of a flowering cactus, Limuru Road, Nairobi. But then Will Knocker told me it's an invasive species, and I shouldn't have been so excited. But I quite like it.